As we're starting to get close to the end of this series of films, we need a recap here, another look at this whole business of changing, to make sure that nothing's missed or underplayed. I'm appropriately surrounded by some of the props you've seen before to help emphasise what's important. It's all about changing how you think, making major and minor modifications to the patterns of your behaviour. Adjustments are needed to align your perceptions so they match with actual reality. You can easily get something wrong, misinterpret a situation or what's been said, and for this blip to then be compounded, resulting in further misunderstandings. Before you know it, you've significantly warped reality, turning it into a picture that noticeably differs from factual truth. This cognitive dissonance and cognitive bias happens to everyone, and it's the reason why change is needed. Before you started to use a tampon or sanitary pad, or began shaving, you were deep in trouble. A chunk of the damage was already done in your early years. The biggest mistake of all was assuming that you're separate, as different from being an individual, turning your back on interconnectedness. Everyone falls into that trap. As a child, you also experienced emotional hurt or disappointment. Understandably, you reacted, learning how to minimise unpleasant emotions. Your strategy of avoidance built up. You learned how to manipulate, to get your own way. By the time you reached adulthood, it had become a complex mess. And it kept getting worse, with further layers of sophisticated conditioning adding to the mix. You've been doing your best. Well, perhaps not literally, but what's emerged is a pile of contradictions. As you don't want to see yourself as a hypocrite or bad person, the deflection goes on and on. You're effectively defending the indefensible. Selfishness is divisive. It's me against you, us against them. Humans are a gregarious species, but a tendency towards tribalism persists. That aside, the self-orientated psychology is in itself the basic problem. As I've said again and again, it's dysfunctional, and it causes a wide range of suffering. This anguish and misery is accepted as a normal part of life, seen as something you have to cope with, as if there's no solution. The passive acceptance of this is dumb, assisted by avoidance, and it goes against us demonstrating clear intelligence in other areas of life. We've previously said that hypocrisy is the elephant in the room, but this statement could equally be applied to avoidance. Edgar D. Mitchell, the sixth man to walk on the moon, was supportive of our work. Ed is now dead, but he and his associates often use the term mass hypnosis to explain how billions of people fool themselves. We don't put it in this way because hypnosis is commonly seen in a narrower perspective as a controversial technique. But it does get the point across of everyone being highly responsive to suggestion, steered in a particular direction. So the aim of changing is to awaken from a state in which reality has been warped or distorted, where you've normalised the unacceptable. We've extensively covered the topic of psychological avoidance throughout this series of films, and this is now the third appearance of my favourite ostrich. I can't stress enough just how crucial it is for you to stop burying your head in the sand. The entire spectrum of defensiveness, selfishness protection is damaging. You'll have your own version of it, and it's wide-ranging. People's inventiveness to come up with one excuse after another shouldn't be underestimated. When pushed into a corner, you can be amazingly creative. If challenged after making an excuse, you'll likely fall into the trap of explaining why you did what you did, which doesn't help, merely reinforcing the habit. Then there's using humour to laugh off or minimise anything you find uncomfortable. All kinds of distractions will distract you, including excessively reminiscing about the past. Moving the goalposts is a common tactic for getting off the hook when you find yourself being caught out. Convenient forgetfulness is a card that has been played by many. Wouldn't it be great if someone's nose actually got longer and longer, like Pinocchio's, every time they told a lie? You wouldn't be able to hide such shameful shit. Work tirelessly to dump any and every bit of avoidance. Replace it with what amounts to integrity. Stop warping reality. Challenge superficiality. You often hear that the aim of life is supposedly to have as much fun as possible. Then you find out that most of the people saying this are on antidepressants, or they comfort eat or whatever. So this have fun mantra doesn't really work. They've got it wrong, way wrong. Instead, you need to be serious. Then, in between, you can laugh a lot without it being fake or forced. False faces are just that, false. It's what's behind the mask that matters. Thomas Edison said 5% of people think, 10% think they think, and 85% of people would rather die than think. This was the inventor who had a widespread impact on the modern industrialised world. He worked incredibly hard and didn't give up until he'd achieved his goals. Society is two-faced. On the one hand, you're urged to be responsible, to be law-abiding, for example, sticking to the rules. But there are limits to this responsibility. You mustn't park on a double yellow line, and you can get fined if you do so. But you can turn away from someone who's genuinely in need of help because you don't want to get involved. The contradiction massively escalates when the needed assistance is out of sight, perhaps elsewhere in the world. Even though holidaying overseas is a standard part of what's expected, accepted as normal. True responsibility is being fully responsive to everyone and everything around you. There's accountability, a willingness to be reliably dependable. Avoidance is banished, gone. Emotional dysfunction is too readily accepted and normalised. I'm not at all suggesting inner problems should be kept hidden, stuffed down. But wearing them as a badge, as if it somehow shows you fit in, is badly misplaced, self-indulgent and unhelpful. Acknowledge and face the issue, yes, but then get on and adjust the imbalance, sorting it out. I know sharks get a bad press, and this little softie doesn't look at all threatening, but they do occasionally bite the legs off swimmers. It's the danger of emotion that I want to stress here, yet again. Whether it hits you as a shark attack or just persistently niggles and nags away, dragging you down, it's not good. Look to rational thinking and logical understanding, not how you feel. The lower emotions are limiting and negative. If you decide to change your life, then please drop any immature stroppiness. Improve your attitude. Sincerely want to learn, cultivating humility and respect for those who know better. Stop acting as if you're a brick wall, or as if you're surrounded by one. Throw yourself into being a good student, wanting to listen and learn. A teacher remarked to the pupil, "Your problem is that you're seeing double." "Impossible," replied the pupil. "If that was so, there'd be 4 suns in the sky instead of 2. There are countless ways to warp reality. The ups and downs of people's lives, including far too much mediocrity, gets close to becoming a mild type of madness. It's certainly unhealthy, psychologically, but also commonly spilling over into physical consequences. Safety in numbers keeps it viewed as normal. But you should now be thinking of this as being ludicrous, an unnecessary waste of life. There's probably never going to be perfection, but we could expect incredibly high standards if everyone significantly raised the bar. Life would be unrecognisable compared to how it is today if we all got serious about delivering capability. Self-doubt and insecurity would become a thing of the past, and there'd be no reason to make silly excuses. No one would get wrongly blamed. Yes, there'd still be a learning curve, But when a mistake occurred, you'd immediately acknowledge you'd got something wrong before then learning from the error. You'd welcome any feedback, constructive criticism, instead of irrationally feeling got at and resentful. Defensiveness would be seen as futile. Life doesn't have to be the way it currently is. We do have freedom of choice. We can put a stop to the current low-level behaviour and learn to be different. There is a better way, as I've been outlining. Everyone could feel fulfilled. Before we more systematically explained our process for change as a combination of 16 key factors, we described it as the way of seeing and feeling. Seeing, of course, is the activity of inquiry to penetrate the veils of ignorance. It's concerned with removing the barriers of distortion, illusion, and limitation characteristic of separateness. It leads to greater understanding. If seeing is the uncluttered ability to rationally think and analyse, then feeling is the unlimited capacity for love of being, involving a wholeness of concern and unparalleled belonging. The way of seeing and feeling is an interactive process. Increased seeing leads to greater feeling, and more feeling prompts further seeing. Together they combine to produce engaged aliveness. I'm not in any way being unrealistic. We live what we know and say, and you can learn more in our book Avoidance Doesn't Work. As always, I look forward to seeing you again soon.